Of Tuesday's Alabama Senate election, controversial Republican candidate Roy Moore is facing off against Democrat Doug Jones in Alabama. President Trump has already endorsed Roy Moore, but he's skipping the heart of Dixie to nearby Pensacola, Florida, tonight, where he will hold a campaign-style rally. We want to bring in former DOJ official under Eric Holder, former advisor to President Obama's presidential campaign, Democratic strategist Jake Maccoby. Jake, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Your reaction to this ahead of the election in Alabama?
I think this is a really sad moment, not just for the U.S. Senate, or for the Republican Party, but certainly for children across the United States who have been victims of abuse or who might be victims of abuse and are now seeing a person who's been accused of multiple counts of molesting teenage girls be supported by the Republican Party in a U.S. Senate bid in Alabama.
He says it's not true.
He says it's not true, yes. And I think that's part of the problem here is that you have a situation where people who deny allegations, credible allegations against them are getting a free pass, while people who take responsibility for bad actions are doing the right thing and resigning. So I think that causes a real problem, because what it does is it validates what attackers often say to their victims, which is that no one will believe you. I'm the adult, or I'm the person in power, and no one will believe you if you come forward. And I think that's a real problem when you see the Republican Party validate that, with the RNC putting money into this race, or when you see the President of the United States validate that, particularly when he's done something similar, when he's had 12 people.
We don't know that to be true, but yes, there are allegations out there.
There are 12 allegations by 12 different women who have come forward against...
But last time I checked, one person is not the judge, the jury, and the executor in America, right?
Right, but aren't you troubled on the other side of the aisle by Al Franken, who stood up in front of his colleagues yesterday and said he was resigning, but also pointed out, I think I would have been cleared by an ethics investigation. He essentially said, I didn't do anything wrong. Some of the allegations against me are simply not true. Others I remember very differently. But he's being drummed out of D.C. by female colleagues, quite frankly, and the Democratic Party, because they see the political benefit of getting rid of him rather than him. He essentially says the stories that are being told are not the way I remembered them, not what happened. So rather than standing up for somebody who's been wrongly accused, he resigns. And I mean, what does that say to the men of this country who are liberals?
Well, I think I think that's a little bit of a cynical way to look at it, to see it as a purely political play.
I don't think it's cynical. I think it's political.
Well,
that's what you just stated. It's a fact.
Let's be clear, though. I think what's really important here is that we need to create a real culture of respect for women, not just in optics, but in action. And I think that's a big part of what yesterday was about, is making sure that people feel comfortable in the Democratic Party, making sure that they feel comfortable in the U.S. Congress, making sure that they feel comfortable in the workplace all over the country. You've seen these allegations like these not just in politics, but in media. You've seen them in businesses across the country. And I think we're in a real moment of reckoning. And so I think what yesterday was really about is making sure that people feel like we are really taking action. This is an issue that is really important to us. And I think that's what you've seen that it is.
Some people think he's not even going to step down. So here's what Al Franken said yesterday. And he said it's in the coming weeks. Listen to this.
Some of the allegations against me are simply not true. Others I remember very differently. I, of all people, am aware that there is some irony in the fact that I am leaving while a man who has bragged on tape about his history of sexual assault sits in the Oval Office, and a man who has repeatedly preyed on young girls campaigns for the Senate with the full support of his party.
Why do you think he's saying, and there's the picture, obviously, that launched this whole this whole conversation of Al Franken, but why is he saying, I'll step down in the coming weeks? What is he going to do in the next couple of weeks?
Well, that I can't tell you, but what I can say is I think he's right that certainly that it is ironic that there has been that the Democratic Party is really making an effort to demonstrate this culture of respect, while you have a person in the Oval Office who has gleefully bragged about sexual assault, who's been accused by 12 different women, and while you've got a person running for the U.S. Senate with the president's support who has been accused of multiple counts of molesting teenage girls. And I think that that's really devastating. And not only them, but you've got Blake Farenthold, who's a congressman from Texas, who paid $84,000 of taxpayer money to settle an allegation like this.
Y'all need to stop acting like that this is a partisan issue.
It's not a partisan issue.
The mistreatment and degradation of women is a partisan issue. Because, listen, working here, when what happened here over a year ago, that's exactly how liberals treated anybody who worked here. And that it was a partisan issue, that it's only conservatives. And I think that the Democrats are playing a game with Al Franken.
It's clearly a strategy.
They need him to step aside because they drummed Conyers out so quickly that they need him to step aside and move to the background so they can hang this issue of sexual harassment and the mistreatment of women around or try to around the neck of Republicans.
Take the moral ground. Take the moral ground. We got to